You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to Horror Ramblings, your podcast for all things horror. I am your host, Stephen White, and joining me today is a guy that you should all know, that is, if you have listened to Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo, because I've talked about him a lot over there. He's the busiest podcaster that I know, even more so than myself, because he is the co-host and editor of several podcasts, such as Comic Zombie, Too Young for This Trek, Epic Fails of History, Super Switch Club, and my personal favorite, Podcasters Assemble. He's also an acclaimed author, publishing such books as the Epic Fail series and his newest sci-fi noir novella, 2299, about a detective investigating a cold case on the space station Vanaheim, ensnared in a web of lies and murder. Sounds like something this audience could get behind. It brings me such joy to introduce my friend and podcast cousin from another network, Erik Slader.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. And I got to say, that's the best intro anyone's ever done for me. That's amazing. Thank you.
I try. I want everyone to know that my guests are as equally important and just as fascinating, and that's why they're here. So, and I'm glad you actually reached out, because I was kind of scrambling for an episode this week, and you were just like, "Hey, you want to talk about, some movies?" And I was like, "Sure." And so we're going to talk today about Halloween. Now, granted, we talked last week, my wife and I, we talked about Blumhouse's Halloween. We kind of skimmed over the originals because we really wanted to focus on that. But today we are going to talk about John Carpenter's Halloween trilogy.
That's right.
Because he technically does have his own trilogy. The first, the second, and the third. Now, granted, he didn't direct them all, but he was involved heavily in all three. So I thought that would be a fun way to kind of explore what his ideas were, the aspects of what John Carpenter wanted Halloween to be. So
definitely. You
tell me, what is your relationship to Halloween as a whole?
I love the holiday. No, the movies. This series is fantastic. I like horror. When it comes to horror movies, it really kind of depends. Like, I'm kind of iffy. It's either has to be great or awful for me to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, as far as slasher movies go, the Halloween series is where it's at. There's always been something special about those movies for me. And it really, a lot of it's like, I had seen bits and pieces of them when I was a kid, probably way earlier than I should have. But when I revisited it in college, that's when I really became a fan. Like, I loved John Carpenter's original, the 1978 classic, which we'll get into here in a second. And the Rob Zombie films kind of reinvigorated that interest as well around that same time.
Right.
Especially the first one. The second one, that's a whole nother topic.
Right.
But I really, really, really enjoyed those last three movies, the Blumhouse trilogy. And I loved what you guys talked about in the last episode. So any listeners out there, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, definitely do yourselves a favor and do that, because it's a great breakdown of what they did with this series. It's a very different take, but I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I didn't catch some of the elements that were kind of described by the director. I kind of heard it this past week.
Sure.
And he even said in a previous interview, like, he had said what this film was going to be, Halloween Ends, that it was very much like Christine.
Yeah,
John Carpenter's Christine. And he said this in an interview long before the movie came out. And I remember that quote. And I thought, And for some reason, I never connected the dots. And then now looking at it, I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's what he did. So it was very fascinating. And I think that's what turned a lot of people away.
I think you have to view it on its own terms,
Right.
Like, you can't bring all the baggage of the other movies. That was the whole point of the 2018 one, right? Like it was a sort of a fresh start. It's kind of like how they approach the Godzilla movies, the Toho Godzilla movies, where they just have the first one as canon.
Right.
They just forget all the other nonsense and start fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved that approach. But yeah, I think Halloween Ends was a great ending to that series.
Sure. And I'm really hoping that for those who don't like it, maybe over time they can find an appreciation for it, because even one of the films that we're going to talk about today,
yeah,
my initial viewing of it, I did have kind of I'm not sure, and I've grown to appreciate it over time. So
for sure,
base it on its own merits, like you said. There's something good in it. You just have to find what works best for you. Some movies are a little hard, that you're never. It's never going to connect with you for whatever reason.
Right. So. Well, and before we move on from those, my one real issue, and it's not really an issue anymore, but when I first saw Halloween Kills, the way that movie ended kind of threw me through a loop, because I'm like, oh, they're going the supernatural route.
Right.
But then Halloween Ends comes out, and it's like, wait, did that actually happen? Was that just the boogeyman, the urban myth, like, was that, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, I can appreciate what they did there,
Yeah, I honestly feel like they did that on purpose to really build the mythos and make you think, oh, he's something. And then they snatch it away. And I think, again, that's probably what bothered a lot of these people who disliked it, because they were just like, because I thought they were going this route. And it was like, no, think about it. Remember, he's just a man.
And again, like your wife was saying, it's really not just Michael's story. It's really more Jamie Lee Curtis's.
Yeah.
I can't.
Laurie Strode.
Laurie's story. I don't know why I just blanked on that, but yeah, exactly. I love that she got a happy ending. She had a story arc, and it was about her family and all that. So.
Yeah, my wife was so worried she was going to die, and honestly, I had that same feeling too. I was like, they're going to kill her off, and I really didn't want to see it happen, but I just felt like, well, if it works for the story, then I guess we'll just have to wait and see, because I didn't know what to expect. So I was really happy with it, much like I think I even compared it to in that episode, The Last Jedi. It's stark. It's such a different route that sure you're gonna piss some people off, but hopefully over time they can find appreciation for what they were attempting to do, because that's where I give Rian Johnson a lot of credit. At least he was trying something new. Yeah. And not just going by formula. He did something wholly unique, and I walked out of that going, holy shit. He went right the opposite direction of everything I expected, and I loved it.
Yeah, and they really should have kept with that. That's a whole nother conversation, obviously. Sure. But I totally agree. Like, I think fans, they get this they like go in with expectations. I think that's the issue. You got to take it on its own terms. And I like being surprised by shit. It never happens anymore. And this Halloween Ends surprised me in a good way. So
yeah. And sometimes surprises can be bad. It just depends on how they do it.
Oh yeah, but execution matters.
Oh yeah, for sure. So today, as we said, we're going to be talking about John Carpenter's Halloween series, and I guess we'll kind of jump into the original film and kind of explore the themes of that, because I guess what we're kind of looking at here with John Carpenter's Halloween is from the stories that I've heard, behind the scenes, looking to do something, just, something simple, easy, a slasher film.
Right.
The babysitter killer, I think, was one of the original ideas, because that's where it really stemmed from. A babysitter. For sure. What's more terrifying than someone going after a babysitter, because everybody knows what a babysitter is. Sure. We've all had one. Yeah. So that's really where the theme came in, and they just kind of ran with that idea, and Carpenter built such a great idea based around this one person, and I think that's why this idea got away from him, because he crafted such a fascinating character. Yeah. And what I feel that Rob Zombie, where I can appreciate what he did, I think I even said last week, the boogeyman aspect is what makes the character terrifying. Yeah. Because
the unknown.
The unknown.
It's the fear of fear itself.
And you never really get a good look at him. I mean, this would probably be the only film out of the entire series where you actually get to see his face.
Yeah, very
even briefly. child
It's
and adult.
effective.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he just, you don't know what to expect. He's always in the shadows. He's always in the distance. And a lot of that just works on so many levels.
Oh yeah. And you got to remember, this is basically an indie film.
Yeah.
You know, it's master class filmmaking, but like they had a very small budget. And John Carpenter just used it very well. In fact, there's multiple people that play Michael Myers throughout the movie. I want to say it's the producer who actually plays Michael as a kid. It's her hands that are using the knife.
Deborah Hill. Yep.
You know, yeah, Deborah Hill. Yeah. So I love those little details. There's so much fascinating behind the scenes trivia with this movie. Of course, we got to talk about the Shatner mask. You know.
Oh yeah, the Shatner mask. I mean,
that's the cheapest possible prop, and it's so perfect.
So effective too.
terrifying.
Just minor little detail changes just to make it creepy.
Yeah,
and you'd have never thought.
Bleached
And
it, and yeah,
the fact
and the
that,
way. Oh, sorry.
well, I was just going to say the fact that I never realized that was Shatner for the longest time until they pointed it out. I was like, holy shit, that is Shatner.
Yeah,
That's why it looks
it's
familiar.
a Captain Kirk mask.
Yeah.
So the hair's jet black. I don't know if they dyed the hair, but they definitely bleached the mask. The really great thing about that mask, though, is so, like you said, so much of this movie is in dark, but the mask glows against the light. And it's like all you see at certain points. And then there's the glint of the knife, and like it's the silhouettes and, you know, all that. It's great.
Even when he's lurking in the shadows, I think that's some of my favorite bits is when you just see fragments of it in the shadows, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could slip right by you, but it's there, and it makes you uneasy.
For
You
sure.
know, it's a phantom just lurking in the background.
Exactly. So you got all those aspects, but then there's the music.
Yes.
And this synthy freaking theme gets stuck in my head all season long, and I never get sick of it. Like, I freaking love the theme to these movies. John Carpenter just nailed it right out the gate with this.
And you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually one aspect I forgot to bring up last week that I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Was the score for Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
John Carpenter, Cody Carpenter, and Daniel Davies, man, they just, oh my God.
You could tell they were having fun with it.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. I mean, every score in that trilogy was like they were trying to revisit something in the original and try to add some new flavors to it. The second one, they amped it up, seemed a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
And then in the third, I don't think they really nailed it as Corey's theme, but there was a pervading theme music that seemed very reminiscent of the original score.
There was like two themes kind of interwoven at one point,
Yes.
because I got Corey's theme and Michael's theme, which is kind of interesting.
And I really loved Corey's theme. It just hit on all the right levels, really just elevated the whole material. So hats off to them. I mean, it just John Carpenter, the things he can do. I mean, the
Definitely.
music and directorial, I mean, he's just
For sure.
a masterclass.
And one of the reasons I think I love 2018 so much is because it's a love letter to this original movie. And I know like a lot of people say it doesn't hold up, but for me it does. Like it hits every time. Like I get like on the edge of my seat, even though I know exactly what's going to happen every time I watch it. You know,
Right.
It's a classic.
And while we're talking about that, let's talk about the Shape himself, Nick Castle.
For sure.
One of the most fascinating aspects that I heard behind the scenes that I don't think many other actors who did the role, except for maybe there's one other actor who I felt like really did the role justice. I'm going to remove James Jude Courtney, who played him in the more recent, because you know, he had Nick Castle there, you know, so I mean, you're learning from the master.
For sure, use his apprentice.
Yeah, so that doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. But as far as the actors who didn't have him, who were trying to live up to that, the actor who was in Part 4 and Part 6, George Wilbur.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
He got it.
Yeah.
And what it was, just walk. That was the direction he was told.
He never runs. He's never in a hurry, but he'll catch you.
Yeah.
Like you'll slip up eventually and he'll be there.
and it was never
tortoise in the hair.
Carpenter never said walk slow, walk this way, walk that way. He just said walk.
He did that.
Yeah. Just walk.
Wow.
And that's all he does. He's not running. Like you said, he's not doing any of that other stuff. He's not doing anything specific. If you even go to the second one, which we'll get to in a minute, Dick Warlock, he played him there, and he took him slower. Like there was a
really?
A very methodical pace to it, and it just, you could look at it from certain perspectives, like maybe he's still injured from the things that happened in this movie, but it just doesn't work because he's now just this lumbering, slow, I'm moving. The walking, just basic walking, that's what works. That's what's terrifying.
Definitely. It reminds me of the Terminator, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's like just efficient, you know, and he's gonna, you know, he never gives up, you know?
Right. I think I even heard someone refer to or kind of compare it to a great white, you know?
Yeah, it's like the shark from Jaws. He's Bruce the shark.
He's just a killing machine, black eyes, and that's what he's all about.
Yeah.
And obviously we got to talk about Jamie Lee Curtis in this, her introductory role. I mean, it's interesting to see that. I mean, I know she comes from Hollywood royalty.
I was going to say, she's like, her, was it her mom?
Her mom, Janet Leigh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that connection because that's another great horror movie, of course.
Another beautiful connection that they made. And granted, this is not going to be one of the movies we're talking about today, but it was such a minuscule little thing that if you're paying attention, you'll catch it. Janet Leigh actually had a cameo in Halloween H2O. She was, I think, a secretary at the school in which she was working.
Nice.
And there was a moment where they had the two, like her and her mom, talking, just kind of discussing something about the day. And if you pay attention, you look off in the background, the car that she's getting into is the exact same one from Psycho.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a cool touch.
John Ottman, who did the score for that film, he threw in just a few bars from Psycho.
From the Psycho theme?
Yeah, just very...
That's brilliant.
You know, light, but you hear it and be like, oh, I got it, I heard it. And it was just paying homage to that in that moment. So, I really love that.
I remember that being one of the better ones. And it's one of those I have to revisit because it's been a few years. Probably a couple decades, honestly, at this point. But
it was definitely one of my favorites.
It's one of the earliest ones I saw, I remember.
Yeah. There were a few little issues with it. My issues with it would be just some oddities.
Yeah.
Because there's some mask issues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just stuff like that. I mean, even story-wise, I just kind of look at it like all these. You technically, I think a lot of people say 3 timelines. I would actually argue 4.
4? Yeah.
And
4.
I'll explain that when we get there.
Right. I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that because I think 4, 5, and 6 kind of go off on their own route. You know, it's like they, you know what I mean? Like they kind of went off the rails a little bit for me because it gets weird and, you know, convoluted. But and then the whole Loomis thing. Like I love Donald Pleasance. We need to talk about Donald Pleasance.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's great in all these movies, but like it's funny to me how they keep bringing him back. Because like, doesn't he die multiple times?
Well, that depends on how you look at it.
For sure.
Because again, we can kind of touch on that in the next film.
Yeah, you know, you're right. Sorry. Sorry.
So with Jamie Lee Curtis, like we said, she's coming from, I mean, her mom, if anybody could be technically the original Scream Queen, even though I think a lot of people give Jamie Lee Curtis that honor, which is fair. But, I mean, she comes in and she just knocks it out of the park. I mean,
she really does. It's believable.
You never feel that, you know, this is an actress who had never acted before in her life, that she didn't have any training. It's just natural. So, I mean, she goes hand in hand with this trilogy or this series, much like we kind of described last week. She really brings her A game, and I'm glad that she was never like some other actors. I know, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but
you're good.
Someone like Kevin Bacon, I know he shied away from Friday the 13th, and you know, I'm not saying that Friday the 13th is on par with Halloween in terms of quality. Yeah, I mean, between the two, I'll definitely argue, as much as I'm a Jason fan, Halloween is the superior film, hands down.
I agree.
But, you know, I mean, don't forget where you came from. And she's done so much in her career. I mean,
she has.
She's done a lot of great movies.
She didn't get typecast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like she's ever been slumming it all of her days. She's been in, like, one of her last movies that I thought she was brilliant in was Knives Out. She was really good in that.
Everyone's good in that.
So she had no reason to return to this series, but she did because she has a love for that character. And I'm really happy to see that, although, and I don't know if you saw this or not, I really hope that there's a missing detail from this story.
Really? Okay.
And that someone is just trying to make her out to be a bad guy.
What?
But yeah, it kind of bothers me a little bit to think that she would have done this. There was an interview apparently that happened, I guess, over the weekend where what's her name? Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd in 4 and 5, the little girl,
right.
supposed to be her daughter.
I think I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the actress who actually played Laurie Strode in Halloween's version, I can't remember her name, Scout Taylor
Rob
Compton.
Zombie's version?
Yeah, I think that's her name. And apparently they were at the Halloween Ends premiere, and they went and introduced themselves nervously, mind you, because they were like, "Oh my God, this is the Queen," you know?
Right.
And Danielle Harris said something to the effect of, "Hi, I'm Danielle Harris. I played Jamie Lloyd, who was your daughter in 4, 5, and 6, and I just wanted to come over and say hello."
Yeah.
To which she responded, "I've never seen those movies, and I don't know who you are."
Yeah.
And apparently she was waiting for the punchline where she would have been like, "Just kidding."
Yeah.
Never happened.
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why would you say that to somebody? And
you think?
I don't know.
I'm trying to kind of try to see this from both point of views. Maybe she was just having a really awful day, but that's still kind of
Yeah. And even at the premiere, she could have been, real busy. I get it, but it's
still.
Yeah, it's really a bad look.
Yeah, that's not great. That's unfortunate. Can't really defend that too much.
No.
Yeah. I hope she, maybe realizes the mistake she made and apologizes or reaches out,
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because I've been hearing, I know that there was another type of scuffle like that.
Really?
Things said on the internet, I think it was TJ Miller had said something about Ryan Reynolds being mean to him. And I heard, obviously, Ryan Reynolds, he's like, no, next day he's emailing him. It's like, what's up, dude?
I heard about that too, yeah.
So,
Ryan seems like a genuine guy,
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, but we're not here to talk about Ryan Reynolds.
Sorry.
What about him? I mean, what if he was ever in a Halloween movie, it would be a comedy. He would have fit right in Halloween Resurrection.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that one.
Well, we'll have to talk about it.
I'll come back for that.
Yeah, we'll have to.
We'll break it down scene by scene. We'll do a minute-by-minute podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Now, another thing that I would like to touch on with the original Halloween, and I think that a lot of people might be surprised by it, and it always fascinates me, too, when you think of these horror icons like Michael Myers, like Jason, like Freddy, Leatherface, you have this automatic assumption that all the movies are gory, that they're just blood-soaked, gore fests. And this movie actually took the Texas Chainsaw Massacre route, where you think you're seeing a lot more than you do. There's not a drop of blood that I can remember seeing in this film.
Definitely reminds me of a Hitchcock film because it's more thriller, really.
Yeah.
Less is more, it's what you don't see that's the scariest.
And it's
psychological.
It's a smart approach, too, that I think a lot of horror filmmakers feel like they have to do the gore. And if done correctly, I'm okay with gore. It's not like I'm a prude or anything about it. But, yeah, it's just fascinating that you don't think about it when you're watching it. You just think you're seeing all this carnage, and you're really not.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
lot
testament.
Of implied stuff.
Yeah, it's a testament to how well this was filmed and how calculated he was about every little detail that he does. I mean, even the kills, and if you really think about it, they're very simple. Stab, 2 chokes, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he gets shot, and that's that. there's nothing to it.
Definitely. One thing I want to point out before we move on from the first one, something I noticed recently in rewatching it, there's a scene where the kids are watching a movie on TV. Do you know what movie that is?
The Thing was one of
original.
them. The original.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the new one...
Yeah, I saw that.
You caught it too. You caught it too. Cool.
I was like, oh, that is beautiful. That was a
John
perfect
Carpenter's
homage.
80s remake of The Thing was on the TV in the new one. I was like, perfect. It's full circle. We've come... we're done here. We don't need to make any more of these movies. I'm happy.
No, I thought that was a nice callback.
It was perfect, yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to talk about with this film, with the original?
I feel like we could talk about this one all day, but we should probably move on to the sequel.
Okay. So, with Halloween 2, this one came out in 1981. This was a follow-up to the original that we all know and love. Same night, picking up exactly where we left off. So he gets up, he's wandering the streets of Haddonfield. My understanding of this film is the producer, Mustafa Akkad, I don't know why I was struggling with his name there for a minute. You see it in all the movies.
Yeah.
He wanted to bring back Michael Myers. And same with Dino De Laurentiis. He got in on it, and he actually brought the movie to an actual studio, which was Universal. Because, like you said, it was an independent film, probably one of the highest grossing independent films for the longest time.
For real, yeah.
And so they
impression.
Brought it to the studio. They're like, hey, this is what we're going to do with Halloween. And Carpenter's original vision was, hey, let's do something different. Let's do an anthology. And they're like, nah, let's bring back that guy, Michael Myers.
Yeah, they wanted a direct sequel. And
right.
Everything about this is like a typical sequel to me. It's like just the same but more,
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that it picks up immediately after the first one. I thought that was kind of clever. It's the same night,
Right. And, I could see where he would be a little disappointed by this, because looking back at the ending of the original film, if you compare it to a lot of Carpenter's work, it's very Carpenter. The ending is so ambiguous to where you're like, oh.
Right.
And if you take a look at a lot of his earlier work, that's how it is. So you're left wondering, what should I be feeling? What actually happened? So it kind of leaves it up to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it didn't need a sequel. It was one of those movies for sure.
And obviously, if studios are not going to let that happen.
No.
If
they'll milk it till the end of time.
There's a loophole, they'll exploit it. Yeah. So Carpenter got put in the hard position of having to make Michael Myers survive or bring him back.
Yeah.
And
I figure if he probably assumed if they're going to make it, I might as well be part of it, right?
Sure.
Like, because they'll make it regardless without him
And he not only co-wrote the script again with Deborah Hill, so they were, it was still kind of within, you still had that feeling of Carpenter there despite him not directing it. Because I think that was another thing. It was like, but I don't want to do that again because I've done it. And so somebody else can do it, and we'll just kind of put together a sequel that kind of follows up. And he also did return for the score. So you kind of have a more synthy Halloween score going with it, which it works. I give Carpenter a lot of credit for his musical talent and what he did here. He loves synths, I've noticed.
For sure. You don't hear it a lot these days, so
no,
I think that's kind of why it works.
Yeah, I think that was what was so wonderful about Halloween Ends, is hearing tickles of it coming back.
Yep.
So this was the film that gave us the sister twist.
That's right.
And something he regrets to this day. So all right, so if I know this is a very broad question, but can you think of anything, like, would you have been satisfied with this movie had that twist just been discarded? Like, it would have been
I don't think it needed it.
Yeah.
I think the movie works without it. I get why they did it, and obviously that's where a lot of those other sequels came from. Like they really built on that, because there really isn't much to Michael Myers as a character. He's the embodiment of evil, like, and that was just a way to connect it to Laurie's story, I think. But obviously you don't need to do that. The newer movies prove that, which I thought was great. But yeah, it's not even hinted at in the original. It's not canon in the original, basically. That was tacked on. It's almost like Luke and Leia being brother and sister. Like it was kind of a last minute decision, and it's pretty obvious that's the case. But it doesn't bother me so much in these movies because I kind of take them as they are. And it is what it is. I don't love it but I also don't love the later sequels as much as some of the others. So
yeah, it felt like an odd connection that, like you said, they ran and milked it for what it was worth. So it was like, well, we have to do this. He can't just be going after whomever. We have to connect him back to all these other characters.
Yeah, it is kind of weird because it's like, why would he fixate on her? But
well, I mean, even to some degree, I mean, if you're looking at it from the new trilogy's point of view, she just got away, and it was like,
she was the one that got away.
Right. So it becomes like an obsession for him, and they could have kind of worked that in some element, where it's just like, okay, so she got away, that bothers him. I gotta finish this. He could be obsessive compulsive. It was like, shit, no, I gotta do this.
Well, it's like how Loomis is obsessed with Michael,
right? And they could be two sides of the same coin.
Of that. Yeah, and Loomis could have explained that if they had gone that route,
Yeah. So
man, someone should remix this, make an alternate version,
right?
Like the non-sister cut,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's odd that Carpenter wouldn't have thought about it like that, Just, I mean, the fact that he didn't want to go into great detail with the character originally, why would you go that route?
Yeah.
When you're crafting this, why would you think that you had to go that route? And obviously, I know that he's mentioned
producer notes.
Could be. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know much about the behind the scenes on this one, but
I mean, I know that I've heard him say he just felt like it needed a twist.
Something. Yeah.
But I'm like you. I don't feel like it was a really. It was nothing that shifted the movie into newer ground. Where you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that. It was just like, okay, and you're left wondering.
Well, and the sister thing aside, I guess I'm interested to hear, how do you feel about this movie in relation to the first one, quality wise?
Yeah, I don't dislike it.
Same.
It's a fun follow-up. You're still kind of on that same night. You get returning characters. And it was, I mean, you can even tell, as weird as it may seem, that it does have kind of a studio film quality to it. I was like, all right, now we've got
polished.
A budget. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But then, as I mentioned, you had other elements that just don't work, like the guy who played the Shape in this film, Dick Warlock. He's a great stunt coordinator, but he just did not understand what he needed to do. It was just
it's
slow
like something
walking.
was missing.
Yeah,
that's not Michael.
And I know that some people have kind of complained about the mask, and from what I know, that was the same mask,
really?
But his head shape was different than.
That makes sense.
Yeah, from Nick Castle, so it stretched it. It kind of warped it, and I've heard it was sitting in a closet. Smokers smoke, tar and all that just got all over. So I mean, it had been roughed up a little bit in 3 years. So
for sure, that's interesting.
I mean, but it still embodies kind of a look. And each mask has its own unique flair to it, which I kind of like. So I mean, I don't dislike it. It's just it's a mask, for what it is.
Yeah, totally.
And Rick Rosenthal, who was the director of this, I'm going to touch on him for a moment because, as I say, he did a good job just kind of taking the reins and following up for what it was. This son of a bitch is also responsible for Resurrection. So,
are you serious? I
am dead serious. So,
wow.
I don't know how much credit I can give him.
Yeah.
But then again, that could have been studio interference.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Especially with Resurrections, that the whole movie feels like producer notes, and terrible ones at that.
Oh yeah. And I think that was it when they were at Dimension, so that would have been a Weinstein thing. So that explains a lot.
Yeah. fuck.
Other characters in this film that I wanted to touch on, there were the paramedic played by Lance Guest. I can't remember his name for the life of me.
It's been a minute since I've revisited the second one, unfortunately, so I don't remember.
Well, he was he's kind of Laurie's love interest. You probably know him from The Last Starfighter. He was in
that dude. Yeah. Okay,
and you know, he's one of those actors. He's an 80s actor for sure. He was one of those faces you see pop up here and there.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, it's that guy, you know. And I think Last Starfighter was probably his big moment, even though he'd been in some other movies and some terrible ones like Jaws 4.
Well, The Last Starfighter, I wouldn't call it terrible, but it's not great.
Yeah.
You know,
and funny
it's
enough.
all nostalgia. I revisited it recently, and it's like, ooh.
And take a look there.
Effects.
That actually has a lot of Halloween connections because directed by Nick Castle, the original guy who played The Shape.
That's nuts. Yeah.
And one of the other actors, Dan O'Herlihy, was in Halloween 3. He played
That's right.
In Last Starfighter, he was the alien. I can't remember his name.
The co-pilot.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that guy.
It's been a while since I've watched it too, so I can't remember names.
I recognize the voice, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and his
one of those iconic voices.
So yeah, I mean he's always been one of those charming actors, and I kind of hate that he never really launched off to something bigger because he was always a good guy, and he always seemed to be that good, wholesome, charming fella that you root for, and you always kind of root for him here. But there are two cuts to this film, and I really don't know what happened to this man.
Oh, okay.
Because there was a scene.
What's the big difference between the two? Because I don't know if I've ever seen the director's cut. I'm assuming it's a director's cut.
Well, I call it a television cut because I've seen this in the television cut, and what it does is it takes. There's a scene in the movie, I guess, when Michael gets into the hospital, and he's taking out people in here and there, and he waltzes into a room. He doesn't realize there's blood on the floor, and he slips, falls, and then busts his head.
Yeah.
So, on one hand,
used later on, but yeah.
Yeah. So, in one hand, you can look at it and be like, okay, did he just get knocked out? Did he bust his head open? What happened? Yeah. And depending on which cut you watch, he either winds up at the end okay, or he never shows up again. Oh. So then, you're left thinking, oh shit, he died very clumsily. Yeah.
Damn. That's a way to go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's such an oddity that they really didn't know what to do with him, and I just feel like he got the shaft for this film.
Yeah, it's like James Marsden as Cyclops in the X-Men movies.
Yeah,
you know, just like less and less screen time. It's like, what are you doing? This guy's great.
Yeah, exactly. They need to use more of him. I'm so glad he got a second life in Sonic, and hopefully that continues. What about? I don't want to say it's an oddity, but this is just one of the odder choices they made. What about Mr. Sandman?
I kind of like that.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of appropriate, you know.
Mm-hmm. It was just
fits for some reason. I like it. And it's kind of like stuck around in some of the other movies and stuff.
Yeah, I never understood why it worked, but it just seemed like it was like, oh yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We never did. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I'm trying to think of like how that makes sense, and it could be. Is it implying that this whole second movie is a dream? Like,
that would be something, yeah.
And especially when you look at it from the view of the newer movies.
Yeah.
It never happened. This was all a nightmare. That's my headcanon now going forward.
If you even take a look at Halloween 2, or like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, wasn't that hospital sequence a dream?
Yeah.
Like right at the opening?
Exactly.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow, you've blown my mind, man. Halloween 2 could still be canon. It's just a dream,
in a way,
dude.
from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
But okay, so there are a couple things I really like about too. The setting, the hospital's setting, it's creepy. Hospitals are creepy, you know. And there's some great moments, even though there's a few over the top ridiculous moments, like Michael walking through the glass. Like,
yeah.
I love that for some reason. It's really cool.
It's bizarre, but it was like, okay. He can do that.
Exactly. But because it's so over the top like that, I almost feel like, yeah, you could interpret this as a dream, like a nightmare.
Yeah, that is. Oh man, I have never. That's just blowing my mind. That's so beautiful.
There's so much
that
that doesn't make sense. The fact that her sister doesn't really make sense,
Yeah, and she just got it in her head,
You have to make these logical leaps to kind of make it work. But yeah, I still like the movie, but it's a few steps down from the first one, in my opinion.
So, looking at it, and based on the way Carpenter ended it,
yes,
this was supposed to be it.
It's very final.
Yeah, like when they say he returns in part 4, you're like, how?
Yeah,
I saw him burning alive.
Right,
Loomis on top of that, he was right there in it.
He was right next to the... Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so...
But I kind of love that. It's, ridiculous, but you just kind of roll with it.
Sure, yeah, you're just like, okay, they just third-degree burns. They're fine.
I do think the ending's, my favorite part, because it's, such, a badass way to go out.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't even... Yeah, it wasn't even playing. It was just like, all right, we're just going to do this.
Yeah, yep.
And this is where I kind of go, what I was saying earlier, where you could say... a fourth timeline, because you take if you were to take Halloween 1 and 2 as
the duology,
and that's it, you're done.
Yep.
And that was the end of it.
And
so,
I think that was Carpenter's intent at this
it was.
point.
Yeah, he thought, shit, I'll blow him up and they'll never be able to bring him back.
yeah.
Good try.
He's incinerated. He's ash.
Yeah, but no. They found a way.
Right.
So with that, we get Halloween 3 in 1982, because John Carpenter, as we said, his original idea, he wanted to turn Halloween into an anthology series where something new, something different was working. Mm-hmm. And I think he could have gotten away with this. I think it would have worked had Halloween 2 not been made.
I think you're right. I honestly feel like if you swap these two, if Halloween 3 was the second movie, and then Halloween 2 was the third movie, you bring Michael back one last time to kind of, finish that story, and then do the fourth movie something totally different, I think we could have seen a continuation with the anthology line. Yeah. And so we were talking about this before the podcast, and I had never seen Halloween 3. I don't know why. I think it's because there was all these people saying you don't need to watch that one. That one sucks. And so I just kind of assumed okay, I'll just skip it, watch 4 because that's, I heard that one's good. I just remember renting them from the video store, and I think someone dissuaded me from getting the third one. But I'm kind of pissed that I never watched this as a kid, because I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So I watched it for the first time the other night. It blew my mind. It's not a brilliant movie, but there's a lot to love here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that argument people make, you don't need to watch it. It doesn't matter.
Because it doesn't count within the Halloween timelines. Right. It's its own thing.
But
that's what's great about it.
Yeah, and it really did the movie a disservice being dismissed, because so many people just said, well, there's no reason I should watch this because it doesn't deal with Michael Myers. But you're missing out on something.
You're missing the point.
Yeah, you're absolutely missing the point, because I honestly feel like if you look within the casting alone with this film, the anthology idea is very reminiscent, almost predates in some aspect American Horror Story. Because you do have returning actors, not all of them, but there are returning actors like Nancy Loomis, who played one of Laurie's friends. She was the ex-wife of Tom Atkins. The guy who I mentioned, Dick Warlock, who played the Shape, he was an assassin. I honestly, I think he was the guy who ripped the one guy's head off.
Yep, twisted it off, right?
Just twisted it.
That was gory.
And this one will slip by a lot of people. The voice heard on the intercom and on the phone was Jamie Lee Curtis.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there were returning actors, that would be a great idea for the anthology. You bring the same actors back, different characters, do that whole bit, and I really think it could have worked.
I think this is proof that we're in the dark timeline because the anthology never got made, because it could have been great. You know? Like, yeah, it's just such a great concept. It's really unfortunate they didn't go that route. Like, I would have been fine with like more Michael Myers, but like every other movie should be something new, you know?
Yeah. And it could, I mean, you really could have allowed yourself to play with other ideas, kind of what they did here, looking
very unexpected.
Yeah. Because
I did not watch a trailer before this. I was like, I had no idea what to expect. I saw the cover. You know, I had seen the cover a lot of times.
Which is a great cover, by the way.
It is a good cover. It doesn't give anything away, which is also why it's great. But the Season of the Witch title is almost kind of misleading because I was assuming like halfway through the movie, I'm like, there's no witches in this. But then like that ending kind of like there's that monologue by the villain and it like kind of makes sense in the whole Stonehenge thing. And it's weird. You know, it's very out there, but I kind of love it. It's like an old Twilight Zone episode, but full length. You know?
Yeah. And what you kind of noticed too, where they connected, and this goes to Carpenter. I mean, it's his credit to him for these connections. Even back to part 2, they mention Samhain. Here, they really go deeper into it, and then that eventually comes full circle back to more 5 and 6, where they have the thorn tattoo.
Well, there's like the druid thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So they really try. I mean, I'm surprised in part 6 they didn't try to tie in part 3. In some way,
that would have been brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know how, but especially considering there was a movie trailer.
Right. So the fun thing about 3 is it's very meta. Like, because I think I messaged you as soon as I saw that. There's a trailer for the original Halloween in the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one's really fun. You know, like I said, I'm mad at myself. I haven't watched it before. I'm surprised everyone hates on this movie because it's a really fun. It's a little schlocky, but it's a fun horror movie.
I think, like I told you, don't worry about the Michael Myers thing. Watch it on its own merits. Forget
That's the thing.
that it's Halloween. Just focus on you're watching a movie called Season of the Witch. Go.
Yep.
And that's what you have to do. And you have no expectations at that point that you're trying to watch a Halloween film.
Right. Yeah.
So, the very first time I watched it, I was a little like taken aback by it because I wasn't sure. Because again, I did have those expectations for whatever stupid reason. I knew that it wasn't a Halloween film.
Right.
But I didn't allow myself to watch it for its merits. And watching it again and again, I love it. I mean, it's great.
I would definitely revisit this one. And what's kind of interesting is it does. Even though it doesn't actually tie into the Halloween series, in a way, it does have this whole theme about masks, which is kind of a big thing in, you know, the Halloween franchise. So I thought that kind of worked as a tie-in, you know?
For sure, yeah. And got to talk about the score. I don't know if you picked up on this. I mean, this was definitely a very synth-heavy score. Starts off, you know, with the tweaks. Did you notice at the beginning, because this is one of the things that I just love when music can amplify everything going on. Yes, the visuals, the lines going up the screen. We're just kind of hitting with the notes.
Yeah, that drew me in immediately.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff. It's like the Psycho opening with the lines, and it goes with the music. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it's a really effective way to draw you in, and you don't even. Sometimes, you know, there are some people like my wife. She didn't catch it at first, but. I think you just become mesmerized by it while you're watching it, and you're like, oh man. And then if you're observing it outsider, you kind of pick up on it. It's like, that's clever. I like that.
Yeah. And it reminded me of kind of like the Tim Burton Batman opening where you like see little bits of the logo and then it zooms out and you see the full thing. In this case, it's the pumpkin, but it's a digital version, kind of like the TV screen, you know? So that was cool.
Did you know, here's another fun fact for you.
Sure.
Because I would really like to know what this film would have been like under his direction. But Joe Dante was originally scheduled to direct this film.
Oh.
And he had to drop out for scheduling conflicts or whatever.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
I'm curious. I really would like to know because he's another favorite of mine. And given the nature of the story, Would he have gone a little campier? Would he have, kind of leaned in a little harder? Because looking at something like The Howling
There's some
that he
campy
did,
moments.
yeah.
So,
Do you think it could have been better received with him as a director? I mean, no disrespect to Tommy Lee Wallace, but still.
possibly he could have brought. Well, he was known at that time, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was starting to, like, he had done The Howling, he'd done Piranha. Did he do?
He could have brought a little bit of like gravitas to it, I guess, and
Yeah.
maybe people would have like shown up and like really supported it because of him. But I feel like it would have been a different movie, a different take, tonally maybe. I think I'm kind of glad he didn't, because I like this movie the way it is,
Sure. Yeah.
It's
And there are a lot of, I kind of noticed, because I rewatched it myself the other night, just a refresher, why not?
for sure.
And there are a lot of moments where the assassins, that's what we're going to call them, I guess, the ones that are just like the suit men who just go out on killing sprees, they do very Michael Myers-esque shots with these characters where they just step into frame. So there are those elements that they kind of brought over that
They were the shape.
yeah, exactly. They were the shape, and they kind of fill that void, and you can kind of look at it that way, or you can at least give it. That's why it's Halloween. It's like we do have a new shape. It's just several.
For sure. And also, are we doing spoilers on this one?
Yeah,
for
go
people
for
who
it.
haven't seen it. We got to talk about the robot thing.
Yeah.
Early on, I started speculating that there might be something like that going on, because there are hints at it.
Yeah.
The way that those guys move, and I didn't know this going in. I had no idea there was robots in this. But there was I was getting some Westworld vibes, like the 70s Westworld, like the certain parts. But then there was that part where the forensic analyst is like, oh, they must have gotten these mixed up, because I'm just getting plastic and metal or whatever out of the crime scene. And it's like, oh, I see what you're doing there. Yeah. I was assuming, though, that maybe there was like aliens involved or something crazy like that. But I liked it, it was a little weird by the end, like that twist where there was like, I guess they were magically infused chips or whatever. And I wasn't sure how that worked, but it was still like a cool, creepy vibe, and it's like, I liked it.
And then we've got his the doppelganger girlfriend just kind of
I have questions
at the
about
end.
that.
Yeah,
it was a cool twist, but I was like, at what point was she switched out? Was she an android the whole time? And I didn't buy that, because that seemed like she was too advanced,
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I kind of thought, because they did kind of capture her at one moment, so I'm going to assume it had to have been in that moment, but they never gave you any indication that anything was going on, that anything was happening, because her, like you said, there's just something a little off about it had she been planning there the whole time. And then what would have been her end game? Because it's not like they needed the main character, Tom Atkins' character.
She helped him escape. She helped him do the thing. It's like she sabotaged her. It's weird.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked had she been a robot the whole time. So I'm assuming when they captured her, they did the swap.
Yeah. There is one. I'll say it's a minor complaint that I have in this movie. The freaking commercial, the Silver Shamrock. Was it jingle?
Yeah.
That keeps popping up. Like, it was driving me mad by the end. I was like, shut the fuck up. Turn off the TV,
And for everyone listening, I'm going to throw it in right now just so y'all have something to listen to. just to get it, just to get that bug in your ear.
Yeah, totally.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
But yeah, I think I've heard that complaint a lot.
It was overused.
Yes.
I got it, but like 6 times or more, like 8.
I think I heard 14.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
It's television, radio, and even Tom Atkins' character. He's like, dude, enough.
Yeah. I felt for that guy.
But perhaps that was the whole point. They wanted you to feel to kind of understand. It's like, yeah, okay, I don't want to hear this anymore. That's enough.
For sure. And there was one other part that like kind of irked me, and it was when the music almost sounded like a fire alarm at one point. It was like it was like really high pitched, and that was like kind of grating. But that's like a minor thing, like an audiophile thing,
No, I mean my wife, when we were watching it the other day, I was hearing it, and there was like a bell, ding, ding.
That's
ding,
what it was. Yeah.
Ding in the score. And I was hearing it, and it just felt like it was getting louder in my ear. And I was like, I'm about to turn this down. And then I just kind of grabbed the remote and slowly turned it down. And the next thing you know, I just hear her off to the side say, God, that bell was really annoying.
Yeah.
And I was like, so you heard it too? Okay.
Yeah, it's that scene. Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally got that. Yeah.
Did you notice, and I wrote this down because I don't know why I've never picked up on it before, but did you notice there were a lot of conversations in this film that took place over the phone?
Yeah. Huh.
I mean, you go from beginning to end,
Yeah.
it's phone conversations nonstop. He's talking to his wife. He's talking to the forensic expert. He's talking to somebody else.
That's right. Yeah.
Just constant phone conversations. I mean,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I guess they're in different
sure.
places, like there's the town, the creepy ass, Irish robot town or whatever. But yeah.
And another aspect I wanted to touch on, because this can be controversial for some people. I know my wife, I have to argue with her about this at times. I don't want to see children die in movies any more than anybody else.
Right. Yeah, that was shocking.
Yeah.
Especially for the time.
But the way I look at it is if it serves a purpose to the story and is not done just for the sake of shock value, then I'll let it pass. I'm like, well, that's fair. This was one of those.
I agree.
I think
it worked in this case because it set up the stakes.
Right.
Like, it was basically mostly children that were at risk, at this, with this situation. So, I think that did really amp it up. It's like, oh, shit, this is going to be bad,
Because you realize at that moment they are the target audience. They are what they're after. They're going to kill all these children.
Right.
They show you numerous cities
dark.
across the United States, and it's just...
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's actually my favorite moment, I think. You get to see all these, different cities and stuff, like the Phoenix. Actually, that's one of my favorite shots in the movie is the Phoenix, Arizona shot, where it shows the kids on the hill, and you just see their silhouettes against the red sky.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good film, There's some good cinematography in this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought.
So
definitely underrated.
It definitely amps it up, and with that idea in mind of the children dying, we know that the children are dying, I'm going to talk about the ending for a minute, because there was an alternate ending. I don't know if it got filmed and then, or it was just something that was talked about and they just said, no, let's not do it that way. So the ending that we get to see, it's kind of ambiguous. We don't know what's happening.
Carpenter ending.
Yeah, we see exactly a very Carpenter ending, which I think actually is why that works, because we are getting very much in that same vein.
For sure.
The original ending, to my understanding, was we were going to hear children screaming over the credits. Shit. Yeah, that would have been very dark.
That would have been too much. Ooh.
A part of me wants to see that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know that you're just like, God. It brings the room down at that moment.
Right.
So hard.
That would have been ballsy. That would have been bold, and I feel like this would have been a really controversial movie.
For sure.
That happened in theaters,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I'm always fascinated. I want to see those things, despite knowing that probably it's not a good idea. I know, kind of in essence, something that I can remember very much in this vein, where there was an original ending that actually was supposed to work in some ways, but for whatever reason for this film it did not, which was A Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah. The original ending, going from the musical, Audrey 2 gets free. Right. She's rampaging across the city, and that's what you get to see. And that was the original ending to the film.
Yeah.
But the audiences were like, no, I don't like that. because
That was a brilliant ending.
yeah, but
I love
the
it.
characters were so sympathetic. You wanted them to survive because it didn't feel like they deserved anything that they got. So they reshot it. They survived. They have a happy ending.
Yeah.
And in watching it,
Yeah.
seeing it in the context of it all, I have to agree it doesn't work as well because there's nothing in the film that sets up these two having to be punished. It feels cruel.
Right. I hear that. Yeah. It's been a minute since I've revisited that one. But,
Right.
yeah.
So with this, I mean, I don't really feel like, I guess it would be in that same vein. It just feels cruel that all these children are dying, or you know
I
for a
agree.
fact, you know, it's definitive.
Yeah.
And I think that's why not hearing that was probably the smarter choice to go. So I can definitely respect that.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the ambiguous ending with
Sure.
this one for sure. I have questions about a
Okay.
few things with this one, and I don't know if you have answers, but
I'll do my best.
the chips. I'm trying to figure out how this technology works. It creates bugs out of your face.
Not just bugs. I mean, there was that whole
Yeah,
rattlesnake.
snakes
Oh
and-
my God. That was like, no, for me.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
I guess it's magic. It's
druid
dark
magic. Yeah. Maybe it
But
has something
why-
to do with bugs.
Why the technological connection? Like it almost. I guess it's because of a frequency thing. I'm just a little confused on.
Yeah, I think I really don't have answers for that because I'm about as confused as you are. And they even there was that one scene toward the beginning or when they were in the motel that kind of alludes to that with the woman messing with the chip and she gets the very
That was
shocking beam to the
bonkers.
face or to the
Yeah,
mouth, I
like-
guess it was.
That came out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
it was shocking, but it was effective because like man, that was messed up.
So it's like it mangled her face and then we see a bug crawl out of it.
Crawling out. Yeah.
So yeah, it was such an oddity. And then when you actually see the bug thing later on with the kid,
That was disturbing.
I still don't. I have no answers. I guess it was just for the sake of what would be the most grotesque thing we could do. Bugs is
Fair enough.
cool. Why not?
Yeah.
And there
the
might
other-
be some deeper connection that we don't know about. I'll have to do some research.
For sure. Yeah. The other thing was the villain. I'm trying to remember his name. He was the evil CEO
Yes.
guy. I feel was he in RoboCop?
He was in
he-
RoboCop,
he
yeah.
that's right. That's where I know him from. Yeah. Now he vanished at the end.
He did. Yeah.
And he kind of he was like smiling and he just kind of went away. What's that mean? Like how? Why?
I'm going to assume since the plan was still in motion, he's
Yeah.
part of that ambiguity where we're not really
sure.
sure what's going to happen at this point because we do see that.
Fulfilled his purpose, I guess. is what
Right.
it is. Yeah.
So whatever he was trying to do, he's like, well, just because you got away, it doesn't mean my plan has ever stopped or it's not going to stop. And we do see where Tom Atkins' character, which I wish I could remember his name, Dr. Fill in the blank, I'm blanking. He does seem to almost get other television stations to stop running the ad,
Yeah.
but then we're again left with that last channel that's not, which, you know, my wife kind of pointed this out too, and I guess I never really thought about why wouldn't you just go put the phone down and go shut the TV off? Now, granted, I know that doesn't help with the other
The
children,
greater problem. Yeah.
but the three that are standing in front of you, you can at least save them.
yeah, exactly. And what was the other guy doing?
Yeah,
should
he
have
was
turned
just-
it off.
Exactly.
You know. Yeah, it was kind of a weird moment, but like it worked for the tension. I think.
Sure.
You know?
So I won't complain too much, but it was a good usual horror tropes where you're just like, what are you doing? Turn it off. You know, do this thing.
Like, don't run upstairs.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, totally. I think there's moments like that in all of these Halloween movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about any of these films? Anything you wanted to bring up? Anything you want to talk about?
I mean, I would love to be back at some point if you want to have me back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoy these movies a lot, and I'm hoping to rewatch the sequel soon. You know, this really got me back in the mood. You know, to go back down that rabbit hole. You know,
Right. And obviously, as we said with this film, it was not a hit. It took
I could see that.
6 years before Halloween ever saw a release again in theaters. and that was, bringing back Michael Myers, going back to basics. And, not only, I'll kind of argue this point as well, not only was I feel like Halloween 2 a detriment to 3, and it's why everyone wanted to see Michael Myers, but at that time, the slasher genre was really starting to pick up. Because between Halloween and Halloween 2, Friday the 13th had come out. It had produced, by the time Halloween 3 came out, there were 3 sequels to that already. Yeah. So that was running hard and fast. And then all these copycats wanted in on it. I mean, if you look right there in that core section of the early 80s, how many copycats you have.
Well, Halloween started a trend. That first one, it really kind of started the whole slasher genre in a way. I know there was ones that predated it, but like it really got that ball rolling. And I honestly think it's still one of the best, of all of them.
It set the groundwork.
Included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I argue that Texas Chainsaw would have been like the precursor to that, but Halloween it's the modern, slasher, because Texas Chainsaw, where it is kind of slasher-esque, it has more of a grindhouse feel to it.
Yeah, it's grimy.
It's just
uncomfortable watching.
Oh,
this.
For sure.
I do, at least, yeah.
But Halloween, no, it set the stage for what everyone would want to try and do, want to replicate. So we've got to have a killer and a holiday. So you got, New Year's Eve, or New Year's Evil, Christmas Evil, Silent Night and Deadly Night, and just plethora.
Valentine's Day, Santa Claus. There's a lot of terrible ones, obviously.
Oh yeah, they're not all winners. That's why you don't remember them.
Happy Birthday, I think was
Happy Birthday to Me. Yeah. Which ironically, that's an oddity to me, because the director of that film, he was, I think his name is J. Lee Thompson. He did the last 2 Planet of the Apes films.
Oh, nice.
And he had always been known for like really gory or hyper-violent westerns. So when they brought him into like the Planet of the Apes, they were just like, well, you can't be doing that unless you watch the director's cut of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, which I highly recommend.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to put that on the list.
Man, I was really surprised at all the stuff they cut out of that, because it was pretty good, pretty gory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's another one of those that we might have to cover on a future season of Podcasters Assemble. Do all the
I
Planet
will be
Apes,
there.
There's so many. And a very wide variety of quality. It's a spectrum. I love the newer ones, but the original's great, and a lot of shitty sequels in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of that, anybody, I want to kind of do a shout out to that real quick. As I mentioned up top with Eric, he's got a plethora of podcasts out there. The one, like I said, I enjoy was, or the most, I do enjoy your other stuff. So one,
no worries.
But
there's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot
there's
for
a lot.
me. Like I didn't even mean to get involved in so many. It just kind of happened.
I get it.
But trying to balance it all.
Podcasters Assemble was, I think, the very first one that I'd come on board. Like, I heard about it. Someone had pitched it on a web page or Facebook page or something like that. And I was like, submissions for this, and we're talking about Godzilla and King Kong, and I was like, I can talk about that. I love that.
Yeah, that was a fun season. You were great on those.
I love talking about
having you on.
I wanted to express my passion for it. And
it came through.
Every season since, I've been trying to be a part of. I think I've missed one so far, one or two.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was one.
It was The Matrix.
You came back.
It was a short one. But yeah, if we're talking, I mean, it's such a great concept, and as I've mentioned, I want people to go listen to that. If you find a season of the film franchise that you love, that interests you, and just listen to how it comes together. It's like a well-made casserole. You just get all these different flavors and different opinions, but somehow it just works.
That's the thing I love about that show is you get, exactly, so many different takes, and I weave them together, and it's like, wow, that came out pretty well.
And it's just explained. And it works too, the fact when you have differing opinions, because this person will be like, oh, this is so great, and the next person's like, this sucked.
Yeah, I try to edit it so it's like you get combating views.
Yeah,
that's the best part about it.
But it works. And that's very much what we've been seeing on the internet. So, I mean, it's no different than that. Twitter arguments.
Definitely. And I should point out, we're actually technically between seasons on Podcasters Assemble, but thanks to Zach, we still got our disassembled episodes monthly leading up to the next season. So just to keep the show going.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate, hands off to Zach. He's doing a great job with those.
Absolutely. So go check those things out. See what interests you. There could be something in like I said, 4 different podcasts. There's got to be something that would interest all of you out there. But why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, definitely. So best way to find me is on Twitter or Instagram at Erik Slader. That's Erik with a K, Slader with a D. And I post about all the crazy random shenanigans I'm getting up to, whether it's writing, podcasting, or just talking about nerdy stuff.
There you go, people. And I'll put links down below for just everyone's convenience, as usual. But let us know how you feel about John Carpenter's Halloween trilogy. That's what we're calling it from now on. 1, 2, and 3, that's John Carpenter's.
I don't know if I'd call it a trilogy. Duology and then a one-off. But, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Hey, we're creating waves. We're going to get that controversy started up again.
For sure.
Let us know how you feel about it on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. And if you've got more to say, and a tweet just won't cut it, you can send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com and cuss us out for calling something that's not a real trilogy a trilogy, because I just like stirring that pot. Do you love social media groups? You can follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. And you can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images. And if you Discord, you can join us on Discord in the Horror Ramblers room, and we can discuss horror stuff over there. If you're feeling generous, you can support the show financially at patreon.com/Pencil and Paper Productions to chuck in a buck and help this and other shows like it grow. And if you want to say nice things about the show, why not do it on Apple Podcast and hit that 5-star review? You can help our show grow and express your feelings. All you got to do is hit a 5-star, and you can do that very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined, and you can even answer the questions and polls that we post every week. No one does, but it's there if you want. It's all appreciated. I don't know what everyone's preferred podcast platform is, but most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search for Horror Ramblings on their preferred podcasting platform. And always keep up with things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience. And remember, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.